Hello, we're going to go ahead and get started with tonight's presentation. Thank you all for coming tonight to this discussion on ways to improve energy efficiency in existing buildings. For those of you who do not know, I'm Angelina Jones, the lead planner for design and development here with Town of Herndon. And we are building a technical assistance library of talks such as these. So we will be recording tonight's talk, and it will be available later on the website. I did put a sign-in sheet at the back. So if you didn't pre-register with me, which is totally fine, but you want to be notified when the presentation is online, please go ahead and put your name and legibly put your email address on that sign-in sheet, and I can send it out to you. So without further ado, our speaker tonight is Serena Bolliger, who is a preservation planner with a passion for making existing buildings more energy efficient. She brings experience working in architectural history all over the world, in Rome, London, Washington, D.C. region, as well as graduate degrees in sustainable urban design and historic preservation to her approach improving sustainability of existing structures. So please join me in welcoming Serena.
Thank you so much. Good evening. Thank you for joining me. I'm Serena, as she mentioned, and I'm delighted to be here today to discuss sustainable retrofits for existing buildings. This is something I've studied for the last 20 years. I worked on it, and I'm glad to be able to share just a small snippet with you tonight. Many thanks to Angelina and the Town of Herndon for inviting me to speak. So for me, questions like fairies that flit in and out of my mind, so asking you to hold them till the end may cause them to disappear entirely, but it would really help in terms of the flow of my presentation and keeping me on track. So if you can hold them to the end, that would be great. And also my presentation might answer them, who knows. But let's get started. So the why. Let's talk about why I believe we're here. So firstly, existing buildings. Why existing buildings? So our skylines are what we think of when we think of places. When you think of New York, the iconic buildings are what are conjured in your mind. The skyscrapers, the tenement buildings, the brownstones, they recount the history of our community and how people wanted to live, how people had to live, what was available at the time, what people imagined the future to be, and what people aspired to. Many people think public art is a sculpture in a park, but our buildings are truly the art which defines our communities. The homes you walk past on the way to school each day, the corner store you went to with your family on weekends, the downtown you visited for special occasions, those are the memories you associate with place. And those memories bind us as a community and create a shared feeling of history. They represent the struggles and successes of all the people who came before us and help build the world that we live in. Two is because keeping somewhere costs less than building a new somewhere. Just practically keeping the concrete that's already holding up your house costs less than having a facility in Texas make it. Texas, Alabama, there's a few states that make most of our concrete. They have to ship it here, store it at a facility, waiting for you to buy it, truck it to your site, and then have it made into new walls. Change is expensive. Moving is expensive. The longer you stay in one place, the better financially. And there is a premium placed on the new in our culture, which allows it to be priced at a premium, which can, for no improvement on the product, drive the price beyond what is attainable to many. And then three, there are roughly 111 million existing buildings in the United States, which represent the last 250 years and beyond of our history, and their cultural value is immense. So then why sustainability? So, because the planet we live on is the environment and it keeps us alive, and quid pro quo, it behooves us to keep it alive. Because it is more affordable to keep concrete than to buy it new, more affordable to keep the cold air in your home than make it new, and more affordable to keep your existing windows than buy them new. And because the US has 111 million existing buildings, and relying on new buildings to do the environmental work for us just won't cut it. Some of our oldest historic homes are inherently sustainable. Their orientation, materials, design, they were made in tandem with the environment to capitalize on the movement of the sun, the prevailing winds, and the properties intrinsic to the materials. As our communities grew, And with the advent of convenient transportation and foreign materials, buildings stopped responding to the environment in the same way. So now we need to retroactively apply energy efficient strategies to make our buildings work best for us. So why me? I began my career working in historic museums and realized the vast resources that we poured into preserving historic structures while also creating a very specific human environment was often at odds with the building and the climate. So I've worked in pretty extreme climate conditions in the United States, and I've also worked in temperate climates abroad, and which have allowed me to examine different climates and building strategies. And now I've worked in local government for about a decade, and with residents and business owners on an individual level, seeing what their needs are and how buildings can meet them. And I am, at my core, a cheap hippie. And I love old buildings, and I believe this Venn diagram is basically a circle. Okay, so let's talk a bit about understanding buildings. So you will often, in the presentation, you'll often find me talking about residences, but the majority of these things apply also to commercial properties. I've just mostly worked with historic homes, and I will default to that in my mind. Also, there are some code requirements for commercial buildings that mean these things aren't applicable, but many of these things can apply. I also say historic homes a lot because my brain has been brainwashed to say that, like just automatically. But I mean any existing building. This is like not anything designated. Any building, 1920, 2020. 1980s townhomes need as much insulation as 1940s ones do. So these things apply across the board. So I'm not trying to take you back to physics class, but I'm going to explain a few basic phenomena and how they affect the thermal comfort in our homes so that you can start to identify like, oh, this is why this is happening, rather than something's wrong, I don't know how to fix it, maybe I should buy new windows. So thermal strategies for buildings are generally separated into keeping heat out and keeping your conditioned air in. In our climate, we have both hot and cold seasons, so we need to balance these things. Keeping heat out means reducing the amount of sun's rays that are absorbed into our structure to reduce the cooling load. And then once you have conditioned the interior air, whether it's hot or cold, we want to keep it. The stack effect is, which you can see here, I'm sure you've seen it before. The stack effect is a natural airflow phenomenon where warm air rises and then pulls behind it cool air, because air wants to be the same pressure, wants to have the same amount everywhere. So as the warm air rises and then exits your building, it creates a vacuum that pulls in replacement air from outside, and that is unconditioned air. So the air it pulls in will be a different temperature from the air in your home, and that you'll be able to feel it as it comes in. That's what a draft is. And this forces your HVAC to work harder, and it increases energy consumption, higher utility bills, and causes persistent issues like cold floors, drafts, and even temperatures. And it can also pull in things like moisture, mold spores, odors, and soil gases like radon. So there are three main ways that we experience temperature inside a building. So conduction, convection, and radiation. Conduction is heat transfer through conduct. This is when heat moves through a solid material like wall, or window, floor, and proper insulation slows this transfer. Convection is heat air through air movement. So this describes the movement of air in your home. As warm air rises and cool air sinks, it creates loops of airflow. While this is essential for your HVAC and for getting new oxygen into your home, uncontrolled convection becomes a draft. And then radiation is when heat is transferred between objects without needing to heat the air in between. So this is like the sun radiating onto your home and just moving it directly into your house. Okay, boring stuff is done. Well, I hope the boring stuff is done. Might be boring the whole way through. You never know. Okay, so this is my top tip. This is it. Before spending money, figure out what your problems are. You wouldn't plan a vacation in another country and then just think, I'm not going to check the weather or which language they speak. I'm just going to pack 4 swimsuits and learn Japanese and then go to Russia in December. It would be a huge waste of your time and your resources, and you will get frostbite. So learn what your home needs so that you can tackle things properly and save yourselves time and energy. If you have leaky insulation, it doesn't matter how many new windows you buy. You'll never restore your energy loss. So I've had energy audits in the last 3 homes I've owned, and the results have always surprised me. If you can, consider a professional energy audit. This consists generally of 3 things: a blower door test, infrared thermal imaging, and utility bill analysis. So blower door testing is where you can see the picture on the lower right. They close one of your doors and then pull all the air through it and see how long it takes for your air to replace all the air in your home with new air. It's called air changes per hour. And they want to see how quickly you do it to see how leaky your envelope is. The second thing they do is infrared thermal imaging, which is just basically a temperature gun, which analyzes how different the temperatures are from like 1 inch to the next. And we'll see a few more of those photos. Energy audits generally cost about $300 to $500. While Dominion and the county link to certified providers, I haven't found any rebates for them yet. However, they do offer many rebates for the actions that you implement as a result of your energy audits. Fairfax County actually has an energy audit mini kit, which can be borrowed from the library. This was very exciting to learn about. It includes consumable goods like weather sealing and caulk, but crucially it also has an energy meter and a handheld moisture detector and a laser thermometer, And so you can plug your appliances into the energy meter to see how much energy they use, and then you can test to see how different the temperatures is within your house. You can get it for 2 weeks, and if no one wants it, you can renew it. Very exciting. And so then you can see whether there's a dramatic difference in temperature, whether your cavities are a different temperature from the studs. I generally recommend doing this on a cold day because the temperature differential will be higher. Also, as a DIY effort, if you don't want to get an energy audit professionally, I also recommend opting into comparison programs within your utility. So they will tell you what your consumption is versus your neighbors. This can let you know if you're using more or less than them and can help you pinpoint whether you have a water leak or whether there are appliances or behaviors in your house that are using a lot more than similar buildings. You may find that if you have a leaky building, your HVAC is working harder, or maybe your teenager has left something plugged in that is using a lot of vampire energy. On the small scale, you can use one of these energy monitors to plug in your appliances to that and see how much energy they use. And if you're interested on a large scale, there are smart energy panels which track all of your energy usage and send you that information. And I'll mention those a bit more at the end. So in addition to that, some environmental organizations have individual efforts pursuing certain climate goals. For example, the Sierra Club is trying to cut down on gas appliances in homes, and they will come out and do a free analysis for you and see whether, like, how your gas appliances are performing. And then you can have a bit more information about whether it's leaky or whether you need to replace that. And then there are incentives for those. Okay, so now let's discuss some of the energy strategies I recommend, and I will go in the order in which I recommend them, which provide the best return on investment. So, air sealing. Okay, this is our top offender. The biggest bang for the buck and immediate improvement for how your spaces feel is going to be from air sealing. Less air movement, fewer drafts. I liken this to like when you have a blanket that's too small and your feet are poking out, and it doesn't really matter how warm the rest of you is because your feet are cold and you're going to notice it. And so it doesn't, if you're leaning over in the garden and like your shirt rides up and you have like that icy bit on your back, it affects everything, even if it's a small gap. And so these are infrared photos of my actual house. So you'll see the top right photo is the trim line, and then bottom right is an outlet, and then on the left is the basement, one of the joists in the basement. The purple shows the cold, and the scale will show you that there's a difference of up to 14 degrees within 2 inches of my house due to the cold air being pulled in. This is where the energy audit is the gold standard, but in good news, if you can't get one of those, you can also find out. You can do it kind of on your own. You know which parts of your house are draftiest. You make like a Victorian on a windy day, and you go with a candle like along the perimeter of your house, and you see where the flame flickers, and that shows you where the drafts are. So you want to focus on where the wall meets the floor, the trim and the molding. Window casing. People often look at the window itself, check around the window. Windows are just glass they put in a big hole in your house. The hole is bigger than the window, and they may not have insulated or sealed it when they installed it, so there's still a big hole in your house. The same with the door, big hole in your house. In the basement, check where the ceiling meets the floor above, basement rim joists, utility penetrations, including outlets and chimney flues. You may worry that creating like a really good seal won't allow the required air changes per hour to keep like fresh air in your home. I promise that it takes a Herculean effort to do that. There are only a few passive and net zero houses that are so well air sealed that they need to pump fresh air in. There we go. Okay, so here's a before and after of where I saw air leakage in the infrared and how I treated it. It is not pretty. This is my basement. I was going to enclose it. So I went with function over form. You can also use fiberglass or do it just a little less heavy-handed if you're a bit more artistic than I am. I am, to my own chagrin, a done is better than perfect and not done kind of a person. So my solutions are rarely pretty. Many preservationists don't like spray foam, and I generally agree for large surfaces like walls or attics because you don't know how it's going to affect the moisture movement through the space, or you can't see where there's a leak. But for small openings where it's easily seen and removed, I think it works well in a pinch. Here are a few examples of where to caulk under sills and around casing. For outlets, there are foam pieces to install between the outlet and the cover plate. And for outlets I'm not using, I also like to add the plug gasket as an extra. Yes, insulation. Okay, air sealing works in tandem with insulation because they need to be implemented together to stop the stack effect. If you have no insulation, conditioned air will leak out of your home and pull in air from the outside. And that's what we want. So you've probably heard that insulation has the highest ROI, or return on investment, and that's absolutely true when paired with air sealing. Insulation is like wearing clothes. We've all been outside in the wrong clothes and worn something strange that you found in your car, like a cardigan or like gardening gloves instead of real gloves. And it helps, like every little bit helps. So like that shows you that insulation does prevent that heat transfer. So per the IECC, Herndon is in climate zone 4A, which is called mixed humid. And Fairfax County requires a minimum R38 insulation in attics, R15 in walls, R19 in floors, and R13 in basement walls. This is a minimum. You can increase beyond this. Beyond a certain point, there's a limited return on investment, but there is a benefit to more. In fact, Energy Star recommends R60 for this climate zone in your attics. You may remember that you have insulation in your attic, which meets code. But go and check on it. It settles over time and it can shift away from areas so they're exposed. So take a ruler up there. We all have a ruler and we are not using it anymore. Somebody has to keep the ruler economy going. We're going to do it in our attics. So take a ruler up and figure out what the thickness, what it's meant to be and what it is. Check it's even everywhere. Wear a mask in the attic. Fiberglass is itchy, but even cellulose is dusty and can irritate your lungs. Some old attics may be insulated with asbestos and vermiculite, so always exercise a maximum of caution. These are images, again, show the culprits in my house. So attic hatches were in severe need of insulation, and then some of my knee walls had either missing or wet insulation. Insulation options include mineral wool, blown cellulose, fiberglass. You can do it yourself or hire a professional. It's not complicated, it's just messy. And depending on the season, very, very hot. I spent a summer installing insulation in attics in New Orleans, and it was the closest I got to being a liquid. You will want to air seal the space as well and then add insulation just to ensure that but you have to ensure that there's still venting. So you may see gable vents, you may have a ridge vent, it may vent through the eaves. You have to make sure that hot, moist air is still moving out. Otherwise it will cause moisture issues in your attic. This is where installers may want to use spray foam. Spray foam hides all your problems. And it can't be removed in an emergency, so preservationists don't recommend it because you won't be able to see the leak or the mold or the moisture buildup until it's far too late. Attic hatches are particular criminals because they get replaced and the insulation shifts. And so you can either buy an insulated attic hatch or make one yourself out of radiant barrier and insulation. Walls are often forgotten culprits, but knowing whether your walls are missing insulation or have wet insulation can help you identify moisture problems and prioritize your goals. You can see here in the top left image, someone retroactively blowing insulation into the wall studs. So you can see you can do that and then just patch it back up, so it's not impossible to do. You have to, buildings attract water, and water causes problems. You need to make sure to manage the water, dry the building properly, and avoid trapped moisture. This includes moisture coming inside and also moisture leaving from inside, from showers and kitchens and basements. It can deteriorate windows, you see on the right, and cause building damage, cause paint failure. The paint bubbling is from moisture coming through from the inside of the house when it wasn't. It used to be able to come through the bricks, and then the brick was painted, and so the moisture didn't have anywhere to go, so it blew through the paint. And so common mistakes, here, I recommend once a year, after a big storm, walk around the outside of your building, see where the water has settled. Is it settling on the ground? Is it pooling against your building? Is it sitting on the windowsills? Is it sitting on your porches? Because that water is what's going to be causing damage, and you want to find a way to divert it away from your building, whether that means sanding the sill down just a little bit so it moves off, or making sure that your porch is leaning the right direction, or getting French drains in your garden. You want to make sure to move that water away. So the common mistakes include not ensuring water is diverted away from foundations after storms, not diverting water away from surfaces such as windowsills, porches, balconies, and roofs, not waterproofing your basement, spray foam in the wrong locations, and then making sudden changes to large surfaces where the moisture used to move through and now cannot anymore. Also, it's the same for crawl spaces and attics. Make sure there are vents, because there is going to be moisture that collects and gets out. And also, apparently, vinyl wallpaper applied on like a large surface can also prevent moisture from moving. Never thought about vinyl wallpaper. I'll watch out for that. And it's 1975 anymore, so it's unlikely to be using vinyl around your house. But just in case, I have that stuff. I love to apply wallpaper, probably places inappropriate. And so on a large surface, I can really prevent that moisture from moving. Let's talk about windows. I've already made a lot of jokes about windows. So I used to restore windows in Austin, Texas. Fun fact, I restored the windows on the Alamo. And there's this film that implies that there's no basement of the Alamo, like it's the joke. There's a basement in the Alamo. There is. I've been there. They have teenagers down there who make fudge. I don't know what to tell you. So that's a fun fact for you. Okay, so windows are the final boss of preservation. So I've included this image to reiterate that the air is coming in around your windows, not through them. So in general, this is a vinyl window from like 1985 that was in my house. In general, we need to seal our windows better, not replace them. So I'm going to put in a plug for wooden windows because those are the ones that I've worked with the most. They're made to last forever. They can be sanded, they can be repainted, they can be repaired, which generally vinyl and fiberglass can't be. They also have a low conduction coefficient and they look really pretty. But at the same time, vinyl windows, fiberglass windows, those are the ones that we have now and they can work really well. So folks often feel faced with a decision of whether to buy new windows. And so the issue with existing windows is that they can feel leaky compared to new windows, or at least compared with the idea of new windows. So window companies will try to convince you that your windows need replacing because they sell windows. If they made their money restoring windows, they would try to convince you to keep your windows. So there are strategies that you can employ of various costs and which can dramatically improve the thermal success of your windows and do not cost the many thousands of dollars that new windows do. And I have recently bought new windows for new holes in my house. So I'm not trying to rag on, if anyone here works for window companies, thank you for your service. So many of these strategies you can employ immediately and layer them as you afford them, and you can change them to fit the fashions and adapt them for changing weather. So if you have a pretty day or a rainy day or a cold day, you can adapt these strategies for the weather, whereas new windows can really only do one thing. So, would I repair or replace these windows? A lot of people would look at these and think they're in pretty shoddy condition. However, the first one is just suffering from some moisture issues. So this is a sign that there's standing water, which is a problem that needs to be solved, windows notwithstanding. Ooh, sorry about that. So it's actually helpful that the wood is telling you something about a bigger problem. It's telling you that you need to fix the standing water issue by redirecting a gutter or fixing a leak within or installing an awning or getting a deeper eave. And then either epoxy or patch the wood, sand everything, repaint it, and you are back in business. For a few $100s instead of a few thousand, and a moisture issue that you still have. The second two windows just need a good clean and to have their window putty or glazing removed and redone, and to have someone repaint them carefully. I can't tell you how many windows look like they need to be replaced because they were painted by someone who looks like they were using a paintball gun instead of a brush. So my top tip for window maintenance is open and close all your windows twice a year, in spring and in autumn, when the moisture is changing the way they move. So for some reason, house painters love to paint windows shut, and that is the opposite of the point of operable windows. And so people go to open their windows, they find that they can't, they think they're broken, they need new windows. So even if you mostly use your air conditioning, twice a year in the dry and the cold season, open and close your windows to keep them running smoothly. I literally have an alert in my phone that says go and open and close all your windows. And so if you've noticed that they've been painted shut or they're stuck, just put a piece of sandpaper in between the sill and the stop and run it up and down a few times, and that will keep the window loose and keep you using your windows. And so remember when you agreed to walk around your building after a storm, that's also a great time to look at the outside of your windows. How are they looking? How's the sill looking? Is anything flaking? Wait for a sunny day and give the flaking a quick sand, followed by a coat of paint. Paint is a coating. Paint is a jacket. It protects your envelope from the elements. So if it starts to flake off, you lose that coat and the material beneath it is exposed. I like to pour my leftover paint into jars, and so it's easier to access and I can keep it around the house. And then it makes it much easier for you to do touch-ups. And also, this is my other top tip. This is possibly the best tip I've ever had. So although paint changes color over time if it's left on a surface, one of the best things you can do anytime you get paint is either on paper or on a utility wall inside a cupboard, put a dab of that paint and then write what the paint is and what the color code is. And so you or whoever buys the house from you will have a list of every paint in your house and the color code, so if they ever need to match anything, they can. And it's much better than like frantically looking for a bucket of paint that somebody else in your house already threw away. So remember, before you sand anything, if your house is from the 70s or older, pick up a lead test from the hardware store to make sure that there's not lead paint. And if there is, just behave appropriately when it comes to treating that paint, because you don't want to get lead poisoning. These are examples of windows I would replace. So these were all in a hotel in Texas, in San Antonio, that was still operational. They were still hosting people in this hotel, which is terrifying. But this shows you how far gone I think your windows need to be replaced. They were pretty bad. There were birds living inside, in addition to people. So, it's gone a bit skew with, apologies for this. But so, let's break it down. So, a single pane window is approximately an R1 value. This is resistance 1. For reference, we want our attics to be R38 to R60. That's what good insulation is for us. So replacing an existing R1 window with a new double glazed window can increase your resistance value to approximately 3 or 4. So I'm saying 3.5 for average. So you're getting an improvement of 2.5 over your original R1 window. For existing windows, in terms of insulation strategies, this is where our 3 thermal systems come in. We want to prevent all 3. So we discuss weather sealing. This is non-negotiable. because you need it for a new window or an old one. If you have Swiss cheese around your window, you will have those with a double paned vinyl window that you installed today, just like you did with a century-old window you installed yesterday, or you removed yesterday. So that will prevent your convection. For conduction, we want layers, which add resistance to heat flow. Internally, a cellular blind, especially double and triple cell blinds, are great for insulation, and paired with an insulated velvet or thermal curtain, you're off to the races. You can increase your R value by up to R9. So then a storm window on the exterior and UV film will prevent radiation, which stops the sun from entering your house entirely on those blistering summer days. I think I could sell storm windows. I love them so much. Storm windows, storm doors, big fan. Because these also, they protect your window. They provide UV protection. They can also provide sound insulation, and they protect your windows. They often come with a screen already in them. And I also storm doors, as I was telling Angelina and her husband Kevin. I installed a storm door for the additional insulation, because I have this old metal door, like metal stuffed with foam, and it gets really cold in winter. And so I replacing an old door is, as many of you know, really hard to do, because no existing building is plumb, ever. Never has been. I don't know what that is. They installed it when the earth was moving, and it's just not plumb. And so instead of getting a new door, I got a storm window, or a storm door, which has an inbuilt screen that you can pull up and down. And now my dog can bark at other dogs from ground level, which is nice for her. So anyway, these strategies together, and you can layer them as works for you, can improve your assembly by up to R11. You can also do these with new windows. And so it'll cost you a few $100s over time, but they're really effective ways to increase the thermal value of your windows, and things that you can change around depending on whether it's a pretty day or a sunny day or a dark day. Other strategies, depending on your budget and what kind of building you live in, there are additional options to consider. So clear UV film reduces solar heat gain. Some of these things do require review by your friendly neighborhood planning people, so check in to make sure. So clear UV film reduces solar heat gain, as do shutters and awnings. Shutters are a great way to prevent radiation, and if you like natural circulation, they allow the breeze on lovely days. We use them a lot in Europe, and look, that cat is really enjoying himself in the window. Awnings tend to prevent the hottest summer sun, but also they allow the low winter sun into your home to allow that heat gain in winter that you do want. If you're a techie and you want to work with the season, you can motorize your blinds to raise or lower depending on the time of day. And it's a great way to adapt your windows for the season. And if you can't install exterior storms, interior storms are also a great way to add air and sound barriers. This is a picture of my house, my windows. And so you can see I have an insulated velvet curtain. Then I also have like a translucent privacy curtain for winter when I want the sun to come in, but I don't want my neighbors to see that I'm lifting my very small weights in my living room watching TV. Then I have a double cell shade, and then I have UV filter film on the windows on the inside, and then I have exterior storms. And so I have, that's my setup, and works really well for me. Okay, so let's talk about retrofitting renewable energy. So solar is becoming more and more accessible. Generally, we think about rooftop solar, but there's also detached structure solar and ground-mounted arrays, if that's feasible for you. You will want to consider whether you're interested in letting it flow into the grid or use battery storage. In terms of appearance, people generally think of panels, but there's more and more solar shingles and other designs. And there are common concerns about visibility, but and the effect on the roof. However, many arrays are much more low profile, and they actually protect the roof long term. Again, these are things that have to be reviewed by your local municipality, so make sure that you get permits for all of these things. And so I was recommended to talk about two really great-looking programs. So Solarize Virginia is a long-running education-focused campaign led by local nonprofit LEAP, which is Local Energy Alliance program, and it helps people explore rooftop solar options with free assessments, and they're verified. And so in addition to them, Switch Together is a group buying program, which not only makes rooftop solar installations more affordable, but also makes home battery storage and EV easier to access. And they just started a heat pump program as well. So in addition to solar, geothermal can be a good option for owners who have some land attached to their building and are open to major ground disturbance. So as little as 6 feet underground, the temperature is much more stable, and 30 feet underground, the temperatures that are near constant, kind of 60 degrees roughly in our area. And so geothermal sends coils into the ground and uses that energy either to bring up the temperature to 60 in your home in winter, or to pull the hot air out of your home in summer and use that cooling coil opportunity to reduce that entirely passively. So wind, this isn't generally feasible yet for smaller property owners, although I do know one homeowner in Arlington who has a home turbine. But technology is changing and turbines are getting smaller, and they're more like tunnels now. And so it does seem like those are going to be options for home and business soon. So I talked about renewable energy first and then utility upgrades, because I wanted to make sure that you think about, if you're going to be considering solar, what are the right utilities to pair with that? So utility upgrades, they can be great if you need them. I talked about all the other things first, because I don't want you to go and upgrade your heat pump or something before you do everything else, because you'll still be spending a lot of money. The lowest fruit here is a smart thermostat. If you don't have a smart thermostat, or you haven't programmed your smart thermostat, which a lot of people, they just buy it and then nothing changes, let this be your call to action. They're very easy to wire if you need to install one, and you can get a pro to do it, or you can do it yourself. I've only started 2 electrical fires, so I consider myself a professional. And so you can program it for your comfort, or you can opt into utility programs, which adapt to peak times to save you money. So consider what you need for your lifestyle. For example, I live alone, so zoned heating and cooling was really important to me. I don't want to cool and heat the whole house when I'm in the office all day, or sleeping at night. So I changed my old leaky HVAC for mini splits, and now I can just cool one space at a time. And that means, so say you have 5 heating and cooling areas. You have 2 bedrooms and a living room and a kitchen and an office. You can, if you're just in one space all day, you can reduce your heating or cooling by 80% when you're just using the energy in the one room. This is, again, another time that behavior really matters, because you need to manage the heating and cooling each day and automate it, because it won't save you money if you leave it on all the time. If you have lots of teenagers, say, you might want an on-demand high-capacity water heater instead of an old boiler. And that could save you energy. And if you live in a humid climate, upgrading to a heat pump will pull humidity out of the air and create a more comfortable environment at a higher temperature, in addition to being a more efficient way to move heat through your home. Let's see. So if you're considering this, look for incentives now which work with what you need. Again, don't let anyone lure you into buying things that you don't need, because that's what they're selling. So you want to look around, and we're going to review some of the incentives. So you've done an energy audit, you've sealed and insulated your home, you've added blinds and curtains to your windows, and you still have some performance goals for your building. Now is a good time to look at local, state, federal, and private incentives or rebates. See if any of them apply to you and will help you. Don't fall for sexy offers that you don't need. If you don't need to upgrade something, don't let them seduce you into spending money that you don't need to. However, do check your options, because Dominion Power currently has rebates on smart thermostats, heat pumps, energy monitors, ductwork, maintenance, spray foam, LED lighting, attic insulation, crawl space insulation, pipe insulation, air sealing, wall insulation, basement insulation, low flow appliances, and cool roof installation. There are also federal rebates. The home's rebate program can save you up to $8,000 on home upgrades for when you have a minimum saving of 20%. There's also the HERE program, which provides rebates for the purchase and installation of appliances and building envelope materials to reduce energy bills. But you will need often an audit before you install these things to prove that you're actually saving the energy. There's also incentives like, I'll talk about these in the extra section. Here we go. Okay, so there are a few additional strategies which are good ways to either increase your efficiency or improve your thermal conditions with the least energy use. And they're just extra crazy things that aren't really related to retrofitting your building, or some of them are and some of them aren't. So heated carpets, if you have a really drafty room, or if you happen to have like a space that has a stone floor that you cannot retrofit, heated carpets are great. So radiation from the ground up is one of the most efficient ways to heat. That's why radiators are so efficient. And they will impact not only the radiant temperature of the floor, but also the air temperature in the space. And so if you're open to a big investment, the retrofit version of that is underfloor heating. Underfloor heating under tile is the most efficient way to heat a space because the stone will hold the heat, and the heat will have the longest distance and then the heat that it is made, it has the longest distance to go through your space, and therefore will heat your space most effectively. And in summer, when the heating is off, the stone acts as a heat sink, and so it'll keep your space cooler. This is something a lot of people don't know. Open wood fires, which are lovely. I have had one. They take the heated air from your space, and they burn it. They burn the oxygen and just throw it away outside your house. And then your building has to pull air in from outside, cold air from outside, and then you have to heat that up. So I highly recommend getting a recirculating fire if you can, whether that's gas, whether that's electric, and make sure that it's a closed loop, just so you're not losing all the air that you heated for the inside of your home. Trees. Okay, so these are the OG energy efficiency queens. Trees are proven to reduce the air temperature, and they provide shade in the hottest parts of the year, and then they have the good grace to drop their leaves when you need the sun, which could then reach your home and heat your home for you. Evolution at its finest. Shade sails, these are another strategy you can use to prevent heat from entering your home in the first place. You do have to check to make sure if you're allowed to have those. And then a white roof, this is a really big investment, but if you need a new roof, consider a white one. I swapped my old rusty brown roof for a white roof in Austin, Texas, and it had a noticeable impact on my summer bills. In a commercial space, a rotating door or a vestibule, this will decrease the amount of energy loss from each public interaction. And again, make sure you're fulfilling any regulatory requirements if you want to install any of these. And then if you're chasing comfort, you can consider unhinged residential behaviors, which are, if you watch any of Pride and Prejudice, the fact that they have a breakfast room and then they have a dining room, it's because the breakfast room was in the sunniest part of the house. So move around your house. If you can, in winter, work in the sunniest place. Whatever the east or south facing part of your house is, to take advantage of the sun and the light. And in summer, work on the opposite side of your house, the shadiest part of your house. And then in the afternoon, switch. If in the hottest part of the day, you can leave your house, go to the gym, run errands. Europeans have an afternoon siesta for a reason. You may want to retrofit a nap into your life. And that is another way to prevent yourself from using too much energy. So here are our takeaways. Okay, existing buildings can be highly energy efficient. Preservation and sustainability work together. Then start with diagnostics, not with products. Air sealing usually delivers the greatest return, and then insulation. And then think about your whole house rather than isolated upgrades, and how it works for you and what you need in your house. You don't necessarily need the same things as the people who live next door. And then don't be afraid to try. Almost all of these things can be reversed. You can try one thing at a time as you can afford it. You don't have to do it all in one go. Work on making the space work for you and do it in whatever pace it works for you. And so if we're talking about prioritizing projects, I suggest an energy audit and fixing your water problems, air sealing, insulating, improving your window assembly, and then considering utility improvements and renewable energy. All right, we sped through that, but if you have any questions, either for me or for Angelina, I would welcome them. There's a microphone here just in case. If there are no questions, I'll make them up. That was really effective. I answered everyone's questions. Good job, me.
We have a number of skylights in our house, which are wonderful for natural light.
Yes.
But they are terrible for letting in heat, especially around here in the summer. Of the things you discussed, such as UV film or motorized shades, is there one that's better than the other for stopping that heat infiltration?
Well, I would say, thank you for the question. I would say stopping it from the outside. So I would say the film first, but then, I mean, you can also get storms for skylights. You can get a second covering which has UV film on that, and that would prevent that radiation from coming in. But I installed a motorized blind on mine, which is quite expensive for just like a hat. Just a hat that closes on its own, very expensive. So I installed one motorized blind, and then for the other one, I actually just I put like a sheer shade on that I Velcro on. Like I ran Velcro along the sides of the skylight, and then once a year I put them on, and I just like run like a really sheer fabric along that, and then I take it off when the heating. The cooling season is over. But no, it really depends on what you can afford, because one of those, a motorized blind will cost you like $800 and UV film will cost you $12. So, and also skylights, who built those exclusively over places that are really hard to reach? Over stairwells? How am I going to get to that? It's impossible. Also, things die in those. Why? But so yes, I would recommend whichever one is more affordable for you, or both. But thank you for the question.
Hi, and thank you again for coming. I could not type fast enough. You referenced a energy meter and essentially a package. Did you say it was available at the library, Fairfax County Libraries?
Yes, Fairfax County Libraries. You can check out. So they have lending libraries. Most libraries do for tools, for things there are many that you can get crochet equipment, sewing equipment out. And in this case, you can get also gardening equipment. They have all sorts of things. I highly recommend looking at it. So yes, they have an energy conservation package that you can get, and it has consumables that they expect you to use as much as you need of and then return the rest. It includes like a cork gun, but also cork and the weather sealing and the foam outlet things that I showed you. They have those too, and in addition to that, they have the actual tools. So the laser thermometer, moisture thermometer, and this like little like outlet thing that you plug your appliance into, and then you plug it into the wall, and it measures the amount of kilowatt hours that appliance uses.
Who knew? All right, energy conservation kit. We're all going to be storming the library tomorrow. Thank you.
Do. And that reminds me, I didn't go into any more. I meant to. I don't know where it went. So smart panels are a great option if that's something, if you need to upgrade your electrical panel, but you can also just get smart fuses. And so you can put into, like if you're concerned that there are specific areas in your home that are using a lot more energy, you can get smart fuses, and those will track exactly how much energy is being used by that fuse. And if you can get a whole smart panel, and then you can track the entire usage of your home. So you can see if there are sudden spikes and why is this happening, and who just plugged something in to make the energy skyrocket. And you can track it from home, and you can track it from anywhere. And really, like if you're an energy wonk, that's the kind of thing that you might be interested in.
So thank you for coming tonight. You've been in a lot of different places, very historic places. We, of course, have a historic district here. How do you use renewable energy in a historic district? Because I haven't asked the question, and I probably should have before now. But, I don't know that they're going to want solar panels in the historic district.
So it's a great question. It does come up a lot. So it depends on whether you're talking about a historic commercial district. Often does have flat roofs where they're entirely not visible from the street, and therefore you can install solar on those flat roofs. And therefore a commercial district is a little bit different. On homes, there are some districts, historic review boards that struggle with really visible solar. At the same time, they are removable, and there are many things like utilities that we're required to install that aren't historically appropriate, but we do allow for. And so many people do apply for solar in historic areas. Historically, they've been put on the back of homes. We ask them to be a little bit less visible. If they can be put on ancillary structures, on sheds, on garages, or on the back of the building, or on an addition on the rear. And so there's still ways to get solar. And you just need to get permission. You have to go through your architectural review board and talk to them, and they'll be able to walk you through what works best for your building. But the efficiency of these the panels now is really quite high. So you can do more with less, is what I mean.
And we do have some solar panels in our historic district.
Yes. Oh, yeah. There were pictures where it's on a new build, but that is one of the buildings in the historic district that has solar on it. I took maybe 5 photographs of buildings in the historic district with solar on, whether it was on the building itself or on sheds and garages. And there are probably ones that I couldn't see from the street.
So it's my understanding that in order to properly air seal like an old window, you got to remove the trim in order to get at the casing. Do you have any hot tips for removing the trim but not also destroying your plaster?
Yeah, okay. So I think, there are 2 different things to do if you really want an air seal window. So there is, you want to install, firstly, really old, this is a 150-year-old strategy, this spring bronze insulation, which you run like a channel through the side. You pop the windows out. Popping sounds crazy. It is surprisingly easy to do. You take the stop off and you just pop the window out. Then you run a channel down the inside, each side of the window, and then install the spring bronze, and it acts as an air seal for the literal sash itself. And so that is how you do that, and you just pop them back in and retie the rope and then put the stop back in. And then you're thinking about the space around where the trim is. Say we're talking about, where are we? I think it was an air sealing. So, okay, so that's the casing you're talking about in the top right or the top left. So you can take the trim off and insulate under that. The thing is, if you are talking about windows with lead weights, they need that channel on either side to move the lead weights in. So you actually can't insulate that space. You can insulate around it, up and below. And so I would generally just suggest, unless you're seeing like a major issue with that laser, that you just air seal it with caulk rather than pulling it off and trying to insulate behind it, because there should, you might really need that channel on either side. But it's a great question because, plaster.
Gotcha.
Drywall is one thing to do, plaster.
Second question, unrelated. When insulating walls or attic spaces, vapor barriers, either inside or outside of the insulation, I know usually you want to put them in the hot, moist areas, but of course here in Virginia we have insanely hot and moist summers, but then in the winter the inside of the house is hot. Any thoughts on vapor barriers, inside, outside? No using vapor barriers?
And certainly vapor barriers are great for air sealing. They do though cause those, as you said, the moisture issues. So you have to make sure that it's going to be vented in some way and that the moisture is going to be able to move, unless you want to keep it on the outside or on the inside. Say you're worried about the moisture coming from outside to in, then if you're worried about that, it's because you know there's moisture issues around the foundation of the building, in which case you should stop it from getting to the building. And that's when we're talking about those French drains or finding a new way to divert the water away. If it's on the inside of your building and it's going out, again, why is your basement so wet? Why is mine so wet? And so in that case, you're going to need to think about maybe a heat pump, because the heat pump will help take the moisture out of the air, and so you're going to have less of those moisture issues inside. But so the vapor barrier is the best way to air seal. At the same time, it's going to create moisture issues unless you think about where's my moisture coming from and why is it coming from there and how do I solve it before it starts to create mold inside my house. It's exhausting, I know. I hate to do it myself. But yeah, and that's the thing, because vapor barrier is going to work on one property much more easily than it's going to work on another. So, and instead construction is done in a very like cookie cutter way now, and so moisture barrier, which might work on a townhouse somewhere up on a hill, might cause massive problems at the same exact house down the hill. Because the water isn't moving in the same way. And so that's why I do not have one specific answer for you. I'm sorry. Okay, I feel like we've gotten to the basement, we've gotten through all the questions from the skylight to the basement. I feel like we've gone through the whole house.
Well, thank you so much, Serena.
Thank
this
you.
was absolutely wonderful.
I appreciate your time. Thank you guys so much.